Welcome to Behind the Scenes, the podcast where we delve into the diverse perspectives of the brilliant minds at Entura, one of the world's most experienced power and water consulting firms. This podcast comes to you today from Nipaluna, Hobart, the traditional country of the Moina people of the Southeast Nation. We acknowledge the Tasmanian Aboriginal people and their ongoing connection to culture and country, and the traditional owners of other lands people are joining from today. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people listening today. Join us as we explore the stories of talented individuals shaping a sustainable future, discover who they are, uncover the intricacies of their role, and explore what drives their passion. Get ready for an insider's view into the heartbeat of Entura and the journey toward a more sustainable tomorrow. Silke Schwartz is the Director of Power at Entura. Growing up in Germany, Silke had a passion for sailing and mathematics. This led her to study Naval Architecture in university. After some foundational experiences working in a shipyard over a German winter, she pivoted to the wind power industry. Over her 20 years in the Australian renewable energy industry, she has emerged as an innovative leader in the sector. Silke is constantly evolving. She's looking forward to our future with more renewable energy as technology enables better and more efficient ways of working. Welcome, Silke.
Thank you, Mark.
Question number one is always the same. Who are you?
I am German. I am a naval architect. I am a mum. I am a keen sailor or competitive sailor.
Great. That's a broad range. So we're going to go right back to where you grew up and where you went to school.
So I grew up in a very small town in the western part, close to the Dutch border in Germany. And my childhood was pretty normal, but I early on was quite drawn to the mathematics and physics. And this is really in high school where I had all my focus. And at that time, there were not many other girls doing math and physics. So I was one or two in my grade, which were just in the selective exams for our Abitur, which was quite interesting.
And you mentioned you were a keen competitive sailor. Mm-hmm. Is that something you did as a young girl?
Yeah. So my dad, he had a yacht, and we used to go every weekend and stay on the boat. And this was actually in the Netherlands. It was just a 10-minute drive from our house. And when I was old enough, I was fortunate enough to have my own little dinghy. And we spent every weekend sailing, swimming, having good times. And when I was old enough, I was able to be on the boat by myself and go for little trips, and that continued into competitive sailing. Initially, I did 470, which is an Olympic class, but I never got onto that level. But I'm still quite enjoying doing club races in Australia here now as well.
So you're still sailing?
I'm still sailing.
Fantastic. And that love of sailing mixed with your kind of natural bent towards mathematics and physics, is that what led you to look into naval architecture?
Yeah. When I finished school, I was clear that I want to do something which is either into the direction of architecture or an engineering study. And I was pretty clueless, but then I thought I want to do something unusual and something special. And I saw naval architecture, and I'm like, oh yeah, this would be nicely aligned with my passion for sailing. And when I was studying at some point in time, because initially I thought I could go into yacht design, but our lecturer, he had his own little company, and the first sentence he said was, I don't want to grow my own competition. So he kept the course content to a bare minimum. And I was like, okay, I need to really think, what do I want to do? I don't want to end up at a big shipyard and just do small details on a large container ship. And so I was sitting with friends and saying, okay, I'm not sure, but there is quite a variety of specialized lectures as part of the Naval Architecture course. And for example, you could do offshore engineering and ocean technology and aerodynamics. And one friend said to me, Silke, you should just do renewables. You should go into wind. And I'm like, oh, this sounds great. And so I thought, okay, let's see what I can do. And I think the key thing was that while I was still at university, I reached out to the industry and asked whether they have opportunities. And I started working while I was still studying with the company which was doing wind turbine certification and wind turbine load calculations. And they had me as a student worker, and then I was able to do my final thesis within that company, and they really liked what I was doing, and they offered me a job straight away. So it worked out in the end.
What were the challenges that you had to deal with going from, I guess, naval architecture purely and boats into that different field?
I felt, because it was really my first real professional experience, and having worked in that environment as a student, it felt really seamlessly, because once you are within a company and the company was really well set up in terms of trainings and providing guidance and supervision when it's the first time you're doing a job. So I felt it was really easy for me to learn what I needed to learn with respect to wind turbines and load assumptions, and so it was straightforward.
And if you're going to be somewhere to learn about wind energy, Europe's a great place to be.
Europe is very advanced, and they have been an early adopter with wind and renewable energy and feed-in tariffs to enable the installation of wind farms and solar as well. If you say it's a place to be from the mechanism, yes, but from the wind resource, Australia is much more advanced.
So from that initial role in that first company, your first real job, as you say, professional job, what happened next?
Probably at the same time I started with my first job. I met my partner, who's Australian, while we were both traveling in Guatemala, and we were basically having a long-distance relationship, him working in London for a period of time, and I was based in Hamburg. And we always were considering we would like to move together, but Germany was not really the place for him because of the language barrier, and I didn't want to move to London long term. And then there was an opportunity to present at a conference in Melbourne from my work, and I put a paper in. I got accepted for a verbal presentation, and I basically got approval to travel to Melbourne, and it was a great conference. And Hydro Tasmania Consulting, at that time it was still called Entura was called Hydro Tasmania Consulting, was there as well. And after my presentation, a couple of my current colleagues came and asked whether I would be interested in a job. And I'm like, actually, that would be wonderful. And so we started the discussion, and we ended up relocating to Melbourne and starting a life in Australia.
And what were those early days of wind energy in Australia like?
We come back to the wind energy in Australia. But when I started in Australia, the really interesting bit for me was to understand the cultural differences between Germans and Australians. And I recall my first meeting. I had my manager at the time. She took me to the side before we met with the client, and she said, Silke, I know you are German, so in the meeting, please don't go straight into the subject and straight to the first agenda point. Just maybe asked a question about the weekend or about some foodie results, you want to make sure that you build a little bit of relationship. And I'm like, okay, good. And then like I had the opportunity to do a little bit more like awareness building in terms of what it means cultural. And Germans are very task driven and very everything has to have a certain standard or purpose or procedure, which is different working here, where everything is like, if it works, it's okay, it's great. Like it doesn't need to be necessarily laid out in a way beforehand. And people are really better in a team approach rather than having a hierarchical way of being worked with. And it was quite interesting for me to realize that. And one large difference is as well that Germans can be quite direct. And I know that my friends in my early years in Australia told me that I'm a little bit sledgehammer. So there was quite a little bit of self-reflection happening from that point, and trying to be very mindful of when I was giving some feedback, how to put it forward and being in a more considerate way, which was interesting.
Yeah, it is going to be always an adjustment, isn't it, coming from one culture into another and trying to assimilate and adopt those ways of being. And I think you've well and truly nailed it.
I hope.
So going back to the early days of wind energy in Australia.
Yeah. So I arrived in 2006 and there were like small opportunities in Australia, but we also had the opportunity with Roaring Forties at that time, which was a joint venture between China Light and Power and Hydro Tasmania to explore opportunities in China and India. And I had the opportunity to spend 3 months in Beijing and basically assess wind farm opportunities in China and do technical due diligence on some of the wind farm which were already operational in China. And this was quite a big stretch, being in Australia, but then also going to another country which had like different customs and different, I guess, like how I'm seen as a female engineer. And it was interesting, like we had an assignment where a colleague of mine and we were going to inspect a wind farm, an operating wind farm, and the owner of the wind farm invited us out for dinner the night before. And all the talks were only directed to my male colleague. I was complete air, and I thought I can live with that. I'm not feeling offended by it. But then it turned out that they were doing a lot of toasting, and my colleague had to drink a lot of Beiju. And I'm like, it's maybe tactical. They want to keep him in a way that he might be not as sharp in the morning when we are going to look at the wind farm. And it was quite nice because the next day I could ask all the critical questions. And they looked at me and like, oh, we didn't even realize. So it was interesting to be seeing the different perceptions, like me being a female in a still, I guess, at that time, unusual occupation as an engineer, and then traveling like in countries where there might be a little bit more gender differences.
Yeah, and it sounds like you didn't have too many challenges with that in the German context, not too many challenges with that in the Australian context, which is great. But then encountering that overseas and, being underestimated in that particular case was a superpower, really.
Yeah.
But I guess even though there wasn't too much friction for you in either the German or the Australian context, how have you seen that change over the last, say, 20 years?
I think it is still slow, and we still need more young female coming through and really coming into the industry. It has become better, but there is the big challenge as well with if you're looking at family and being in an profession and in an engineering profession. And so I feel that we probably have quite a good pool of young engineers coming in at a graduate level or professional level, but then there is a little bit of a dropout when they could become into a senior or principal level, because then there is a juggle of family and work. And I'm a mom myself, and I was quite shocked when I told one of my managers at that time that I will take some extended leave because I'm pregnant. And he looked at me in surprise, saying, "Silke, I didn't think that you would want a family. I thought you are looking for your career or looking at your career." And I'm like, the one shouldn't exclude the other. And so I went on maternity leave, and when I was ready to come back after a little bit more than a year, I started in a part-time role, and it was great. And I even managed to then become a team leader, like in a management role, and I was doing that in the initial years in a part-time capacity. And it was still a little bit of a flexible juggle in terms of having a young family at home and having a demanding job and being contactable and responsive. But I was so glad that I could prove everyone wrong, that I can have a career and a family, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and that's still something that you're dealing with now. You have a team of well over 100 within your team, a big remit, a big job that you have to do, and you still have a relatively young family. How do you balance your work commitments with your family commitments, and how do you make sure that you give the right amount of time to both?
Yeah, it's a good question with the balance, and you're asking the right amount of time to both. I think you should consider 3 parties, because it's also important to look after yourself and to find the balance. I really have started with a morning routine, which is quite important to me, and this is having first thing in the morning time for myself, that I can do some yoga. And I really like to start the day that if I go out, either whether it's a bike ride to do school drop-off or ride into the office, or if I can't do the ride, that I do a walk in the morning. I just need some fresh air and some movement. And that is really important, because if I don't have that reset at the start of the day to feel refreshed and I can go into the day, it's important. And you have to be flexible. I have certainly some times where I know that I would like to be part of my daughter's school journey. And this is a great way. At Entura, you have the flexibility. I can block some time out in my calendar, and then I jump online later and or do a little bit of work at night, which is great to be having the flexibility that I can fit in both.
Absolutely. How have you seen the renewable energy industry within Australia shift over that 20-year period?
It's interesting because depending on the political climate, it is sometimes full steam ahead, and then there is a pause again. And I guess the last couple of years we have seen a really strong renewable market, but it has been a little bit, I guess, challenged by the environmental approval and the grid connection process. And especially the grid connection in Australia is very unique and can cause quite a lot of headaches, especially for developers which are coming from Europe, not being aware of how long and how uncertain the whole process can be. And even once you are having your letter for being able to connect, that even when you are in construction and going through your hold point testing, that there still could be some challenges and major delays in actually being able to having a full generation in place. So it's great that the renewable market has been really increased, and we have end of last year quite a few wind farms reaching financial investment decision after there was a little bit of a slow start of the year. So it's great to see that some of the larger projects are going ahead again, and it's a great time to be in the industry.
Yeah, and it's wind, but it's also solar, and then increasingly there's BESS in the mix as well. So how have you seen that evolve?
So it's interesting. We have, when I started in the renewable team, we only had focus on wind. And then we had a couple of requests for solar and having solar monitoring station installed and different solar technology to be assessed. And so we got all together and adapted to, okay, we need some solar capabilities. And then we were quite proficient with solar capabilities. And then we were working already in the Asian Pacific area where there is focus on having solar combined with battery space to have less reliability on diesel generators. So we had already some insights into the best technologies. And now in Australia, there is like the most opportunities which are at the moment going ahead with financial investment decision. What we are seeing in Entura are best opportunities. And it's like this is what I really enjoy and what the team is also enjoying, that we are able to like grow with the market and adjust to what the market needs. So it's not that you are like cornered into, okay, you are a wind engineer, you will be a wind engineer. So you are able to grow and learn and adapt to what the market needs and build technical capabilities and getting like some like people into the team which can provide guidance and mentoring and growing like people in to be very renewable energy engineer rather than just one technical discipline.
Yeah, one of the things that I know that the renewable team in particular are very proud of is the work that they do in the Pacific and reducing the reliance on thermal and diesel generation. How has that evolved over your time?
So I think the first project we were involved with was YAP, where we were initially asked to provide an feasibility study, but that then involved into an owner's engineer role and construction supervision. And we have done now so many locations, like we have been working in a similar capacity, looking for solar and BESS installation in Tonga, in Tuvalu, in Micronesia. We are involved in Timor-Leste. And it's such a great opportunity for especially our young people to go and have like site visits and see how it all gets installed and works together, and having the opportunity to travel to these fantastic locations.
So if the 25-year-old version of yourself was to walk into your office today, what advice would you give her?
What I really think is important is that you are having an open mind and that you are curious and asking a lot of questions and really talk to people. Because if you are talking to people, opportunities will appear and you might be able to learn or get a new challenge for yourself, how you can grow. And this is, I think, the most important aspect. Be open, ask a lot of questions, and try to really interact with many people, that you get a good, nice, big picture view as well, and not just stay with your focus on one technical aspect.
That's great advice. And connected into that, you've had the journey from engineer to consultant and now to leader in the industry. What has that journey been like, and what are the different skill sets that you need to develop to bring yourself to the level that you are today, being an industry leader?
I guess this is a continuous growth or learning required, and being a good leader, one important aspect is self-awareness and really understanding how your impact might influence others as well, or what that impact could be. And I think you can never stop learning and growing to be a good leader. But also in Entura there are great opportunities even for senior manager to enroll in further leadership courses. At the moment I'm doing the leader as a coach, and this is fantastic because it's so great if you can guide and help others to help themselves.
Well, that kind of leads me on to the next question, which is, over the next 5 to 10 years, what do you see changing in the industry, and where do you see yourself going in the industry?
This is also a good question. The biggest change will probably come with the introduction and more rollout of AI. And I'm not 100% sure how that will impact some of the job opportunities around. But for myself, I think it would be great to utilize more of the support you can get in taking meeting records and summarizing, making my life a little bit easier and more effective. But in terms of the industry, we are going through the energy transition in Australia at the moment. So hopefully there will be more brown coal or coal in general being switched off. And I still anticipate there will be more demand for all the data centers. So we will need to look at additional generation. We are looking at the moment in Victoria at the offshore wind auction. And so that will be one area where we might see there is growth in. But then there's another exciting opportunity at the moment. We try to grow, and this is a digital application system where we are looking at not only data capture and analysis, but also providing customer-centric dashboards. So you can basically really manage your data in a meaningful way, that you, for example, have the visuals where instrumentation is installed, or that you have live cams you can remote control and everything is going into one dashboard. And having the big data and how to manage big data, I think that will be a big thing in the future as well.
Fantastic. Silke, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today. It's been a wide-ranging conversation, and as we talk about moving into digital platforms, an ever-evolving one as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this insightful journey behind the scenes at Entura. We hope you've gained valuable insights into the incredible individuals driving sustainable innovation. If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations as we continue to explore the people and stories shaping our sustainable future. Connect with us on LinkedIn and Facebook and find out more about the work we do at entura.com.au. Until next time, this is Mark signing off from Entura's Behind the Scenes, where sustainability meets inspiration.